Well, hello and welcome back. We are here continuing our season of Building Better Foundations. We are Building Better Developers, the Developreneur podcast. I happen to be Rob Broadhead, a founder of Building Better Developers, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you assess your technology and build a roadmap to success. Good things and bad things. Good things. I have been talking about like technology and cool tools and stuff like that recently, and have found that there are, like I said, there's just a lot of neat things that I've been able to do that allow me to really embrace digital nomad and all of those kinds of things, having a virtual office, being able to have conversations with people, being able to keep in touch. And it's really been awesome. This is a really good thing. I really enjoy it. So this is in the plus column. The negative column is doing so now. I have more of a feel like I'm in a studio when I do these things. So I have like bright lights on me and things like that drive me a little bit nuts, or maybe nutser, a little bit more beyond where my sanity level normally lies. Much like my co-host, who drives me crazy on a regular basis for a wide range of reasons. But go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Developreneur, Building Better Developers. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we build and test custom software that helps businesses run smoother and grow faster. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, said technology. I like playing with gadgets and that, and I love playing with those little studio things and video equipment. Bad thing is the audio editing tools are a pain in the butt. It's like one tool that works great for one thing, another tool works great for another, but unless you pay a lot of money, you can't really do it all in one. So sometimes these edits get a little complicated.
I will say that of the tools that we've played around with over the years, although I did it manually for a long time, Adobe's tools are top notch. Although my son, who does a lot of this, would actually argue some of those. There are some better tools out there now. I found that actually Descript is a really good tool to take a look at, and it has progressed very well and very quickly. So, but this is an area where there's a lot of change because of AI and stuff like that. So I would say check your new tools on a regular basis, because there are cool stuff out there and maybe a better price point. All of that being said, let us now return to our conversation with Dan Balcauski, and we're going to talk more about pricing. And yeah, we're going to range far and wide, but pencils up, because I think you're going to want to take notes. There's some really good areas, even the areas that we don't dig into necessarily to go too deep, but we will have links in the show notes and all that kind of good stuff for you to check in with Dan at another time and see if maybe you can have a conversation with him to go deeper in those areas. Here we go, back where we left off in our conversation with Dan.
I love that. So I have one more question. I'll pass it back to Rob. So where do you see in this modern age of AI, SaaS pricing going over the next few years?
Oh, big question. There's so many different areas to touch on here, so I'll try to boil it down to a couple. I think one thing that we're seeing right now is an incredible amount of dynamism in the software pricing space that maybe we've not seen for a very long time. I think probably the last thing it was comparable to was the transition from perpetual to SaaS models, maybe about 15 years ago at this point. So one of the things that's happening is that you've seen competitive dynamics unlike anything you're ever seeing at the sort of foundational model layer. And I think there's kind of there's multiple battlefronts here, which is one of the reasons why it's so complicated. But if we just focus, for example, on, say, the foundational AI model companies, you see every week they're one-upping each other with Anthropic just did this, a week or two ago when they launched Opus 4.5. It's now the best model, and they dropped the price. Right? So you just by that alone, you could see sort of the dynamics that are happening. And so we're seeing constant, iteration and update as folks try to figure that part out. I would say on the other side, where we might talk about AI-enabled software platforms. So every board of directors has asked their CEO since the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022, what are we doing about AI? And we've seen a lot of interesting experiments. I don't know that anything is fully been a home run yet, but So everyone is baking AI enabled capabilities into their products. And so what we're seeing there is a very real tension between how do we monetize this thing? Is it ready to monetize? And how do we manage margin? Because software has got to exist in a very privileged position of world industries where, if I sell you hammers, I have to care how much it costs me to land that hammer manufactured to put it into Home Depot. Like I can't just be like, I'll charge you $1.50 per hammer and like I'll figure it out on the back end. Like, no, you're not gonna be in business very long. But software companies forever have been able to do that. There's been some exception, but the marginal cost to serve, because network storage compute has been almost infinitesimally small on a per incremental user basis, that they've been able to ignore such things. And so now there's a real trade-off that those companies are facing. Okay, we're now seeing the CFO's seeing a giant check every month going out the door to OpenAI or to Anthropic or to Google. What are we doing about this? And so we're seeing a lot of companies. What I think fundamentally is changing is that companies are having to look at their pricing a lot sooner in their life cycle to account for this. There's many other sort of dynamics I could talk about, but I wanted to just start there and lay out some landscape.
Well, I think that sort of leads back to something I wanted to swing back around to. Actually, I guess we'll start with this one. Because we started off talking about like freemium and things like that. And how do you, I want to sort of wrap this into two questions, is how do you look at tiered pricing, like the famous, like, bronze, silver, and gold approach, which to me feels similar because there's always like the free demo and then bronze, silver, gold that tend to be out there. Mm-hmm. And then how do you see, for example, these SaaS tools that are out there, how do you see that, like, adjusting pricing based on for example, like now we're going to have AI as part of, certain tiers or things like that. And it falls into to me, it falls in the same categories of things like, how do you adjust your pricing based on, like the monetary flow and things like that? If you suddenly have, contraction or expansion or, things like that in pricing models, because AI is definitely going to be part of that, as I think it's lowering the cost of the technical tools in a sense, or at least has the opportunity to do that. So how do you see that impacting pricing, or how should that factor into the impact of pricing?
Yeah, this is a great question. So a couple different things. So when you talk about, the bronze, silver, gold, sometimes folks refer to that as, good, better, best. So that is one of the ways that we're seeing SaaS companies monetize today, and I think it makes a lot of sense in certain use cases. So the example would be, so I'll use Intercom because I think they've actually done really smartly. So Intercom does a lot of things, but one of the worlds they compete in is the world of customer service agent software. So they compete with like the Zendesks of the world for customer support systems. And so they have a platform that has a good, better, best. And so one of the things is some of their AI capabilities, like summarize the entire transaction history with this account and all their service tickets, or the last, the history, imagine a service agent gets bounced midway through a support experience, right? And maybe there's a bunch of different notes, summarize all this. So that capability, maybe that's in the better or best tier to help drive upgrade. And maybe I leave my tier pricing alone at like a price point level, but say, in that case, customer support software, much like CRM, often priced per user, because like, how many customer support agents do you have using the platform? Often translates really nicely to the value you're providing. And that value is that value driver is enhancing that agent's ability to be effective, be higher performance, answer tickets faster. The other reason I'm using Intercom is because they also did something separate, which is they created what they call their Fin AI, which is their automated sort of support deflection agent. And for that, they created a entirely separate pricing model because the value driver there is, hey, you don't need to get any agents involved at all. This thing sits on your website. Your customers come and have Intercom's always the thing that, they started this, a bunch of other people copied it, but they're sitting on the bottom right corner of your website. Your little chat window pops up. So, hey, if we can answer your customers' support questions before they ever come to your agent, we'll just charge you 99 cents per resolution. And there, you're not enhancing the value of the customer support agent. Instead, you have a different brand new value driver where the user is not even involved. And so they separated that functionality out. I like the way Intercom has done that and that structure as well, because I'll just maybe lay out some bad practices that I've seen folks creep into, which is, hey, we've got this bill for whatever, $20,000 a month we're paying to OpenAI. They're charging us per token. So we're going to add a per token usage through our platform rider to all of our pricing. Or we're going to add a per token usage limit to. The problem with that is customers have no freaking clue what a token is. And they don't want to know what a token is. Your salespeople don't want to know what a token is. They definitely don't want to have to explain it on a sales call. Because it has nothing to do with your product. If you're selling a CRM and all of a sudden you're in the world explaining what AI tokens are, like, you've already lost the battle. Like, even if you have the best salesperson in the world and they have some amazing pitch, like, you've still gone off the rails trying to explain to a customer. You've moved from talking about their problem. How many salespeople you have? I got 100. Great. It's $10 a user. It's $1,000 a month. Awesome. Sign me up. Now, all of a sudden, now we're talking about infrastructure and your costs, and customers don't give a shit about that. So it's a really bad idea, adds sand in the motion, or sand in the gears of your go-to-market machine. So, what the FinAI example I like is they were able to, so there's permutations, right? If you really believe it's driving value, maybe you increase the cost of those higher tiers in the good, better, best model that have the AI plans to help, cover that. But either way, you've left it as per user price on those plans and 99 cents per resolution, right? We're not talking about how hard our AI's got to work, or we're using OpenAI under the hood and we got to pay them a bunch of money, so we're going to charge you some proximate cause. And companies should have learned this, because they had to go through the same thing back in the days of like the Twilio with like per SMS. Because if you ever looked at telecom pricing, it's like every geography to geography is like this giant matrix. And so, companies have had to deal with even worse before. But, net is, if you're going to try to cap some sort of usage metric, make it something that your customers are already tracking at best, or at least is related to what they're going to be doing with your product in a way that's not tokens.
Do you find, God, every time we have every question, we could expand it to like 6 others. That's like, but this is like, that's the thing, is pricing can be very complicated, can be very, and there are a lot of factors. I mean, it's amazing how often we'll have somebody that's a consultant type and they'll say, well, the answer will be, well, that depends. And pricing, it feels like, is even more so. It's just, there's just so many nuances and details that you can use, and dials and such to hit. But I want to swing back to something that I guess is like getting back from the idea of like a startup or product or something like that. I want to the idea of, we talked about like trials and trial periods and 7 and 14 and 30 days and stuff like that. One of the things I see a lot, and now I'm seeing I always saw it in B2B more, and now I'm seeing it in B2C, and actually push it for the businesses that I talk about, is to take advantage of these, is the idea of demos, where instead of a free trial, is you really sit down, you as a company, you have some resources dedicated to, look, we're going to walk you through this product. Particularly, I think when you get into business products, like even CRMs and things like that, it's like, hey, this gets past the support and some of those kinds. Let us show you how this can work for you. And what I want to know, like, how much of that you have factored in with some of the pricing that discussions you have. And is that something that actually, because the question I have is, could that possibly allow you to ask for a higher pricing? Does it maybe convert better, or allow you to have a little more of a feel of like, this is the Porsche version versus the Kia version of this product?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not 100% sure I'm tracking your question, but I think, for any talk about monetization, you always need to think about creating value, communicating value, and capturing value. So if you think about your demo, is the demo actually effectively communicating value? Because if we can't communicate it, then only a consumer's perceived value of the product matters to their willingness to pay. So you may be able to write out a beautiful Excel model that shows how we create millions of dollars of ROI for you and your company. And if a customer doesn't believe it, prospect doesn't believe it, like that's done no work for you, right? Maybe it's real. Maybe you're like, hey, this is the data. We have thousands of customers, but they don't believe it. If their perception doesn't change, then you haven't influenced, the final number, which is their willingness to pay. So the question then is just, have you architected a demo effectively, or is there an ability to do a free trial? Like I will say 99.9% of the time, a free trial where I can actually put my data in and play around with it myself is going to increase my perceived value more so than a salesperson sitting on a call with me running me through a demo. Because, I mean, we all know how we are, right? I mean, most of us can't even watch a full Netflix without checking our phones, let alone some demo of some business software, our mind's in 20 different places versus, oh, I'm hands-on, I'm interactive with this thing. So then the question is, I want to tie this back though to the idea of these offer configurations or good, better, best structure. If we've done our jobs well, we should be able to say gold, silver, bronze for each of those, who is this for? We have designed those tiers with a particular customer segment in mind. If we start with that end in mind, it makes this process you're talking about all the more effective. Why? Because we say, look, the customers in our minds, it's a hypothesis, and we'll tweak and tune as we go along. But we believe this kind of customer has this type of context. You usually could encapsulate that in maybe 3 to 5 kind of discovery questions. Those are the discovery questions we now enable our sales folks with. Based upon their answers, we now have, cool, my demo script is aligned to showing them this. And at the end, I have a tier that's perfectly meant for you with a price point. So have we thought about that entire flow of the salesperson sitting on a call saying, okay, Mr. Customer, nice to meet you. Tell me a little bit about your business. What about this? Do you guys ever struggle with that? Oh, that's interesting. You ever struggle with this? Cool. Boom, 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 boom. Let me show you how our product solves all those problems through a demo that aligns to the features that are in the tier that you're believe that they're suited to sell, and we make that more effective. So I've just put that all under, are we communicating value effectively?
Oh, that goes back to a comment you made earlier about because it really is, it's like some CEOs will be like, well, you're leaving money on the table, just like anything else. It's like, because you're saying no to, as soon as you segment anybody, you're now saying no to everybody outside of that segment. And now the interesting question there is when you have those tiers and you say, which makes perfect sense, is you have now, let's say you have 3 tiers. So you've got these 3 layers, you've got 3 specific types of customers, so essentially 3 avatars that you're serving. Each product is perfectly suited to them. So when you talk to a CEO or a company or a founder about that, do you get pushback of the like, okay, we're going after the bronze person, or, this is what this looks like? Do you get the pushback of, but wait, we want to be able to upsell them as well, as opposed to, and maybe does that muddy the waters, or is that actually something that you like say, okay, we're going to target the we'll call them the lower end or the less margin customer? Should we talk about upselling and trying to get them into that higher tier level or offering?
Yeah. I used to think that way. I've learned the hard way that you don't get out of a pricing exercise without having that conversation, so you have to front load it. So we didn't talk about kind of my core model, but it starts with customer segmentation. That's the first step of a pricing exercise. Because if you don't do that, inevitably you're going to be at the executive review of the new pricing, and invariably this question will come up. Well, this is great, but what about X customer? this won't work for X customer. So I've learned you want to have that conversation at the beginning. Like, have everyone say, what about X customer? What about Y customer? What about JP Morgan? Because blah, 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 blah. Right? Get all that and then help them figure out who are their customer segments and get those defined, and then build the pricing and packaging around that as a foundation. Because if you get to the end and you haven't done that, inevitably it's going to blow up with that line of questioning.
That actually is a perfect segue as we're sort of like hitting it. Like, this thing could go, like I said, we could do a whole season, I think, just talking about pricing and all these different areas and the different approaches to it and what works and what doesn't. So I think right there, because we haven't even talked too much about your model and your approach. We got way off into other places, which is a perfect setup for people that now hopefully they have got a nice teaser of like, this is somebody that maybe I should talk to. Maybe this Dan guy knows a couple of things and would be worth reaching out to. And in so doing, what is the best way for them to go to hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Dan Balcauski, so folks can reach out to me there. Just let me know you heard me on the podcast so I could separate it from the rest of the random LinkedIn spam. Or go to my website, producttranquility.com. There's a way to contact me there. I also try to blog about this stuff as often as I can manage, try to demystify this. I've got a lot of scar tissue, so we'll, happy to share that love, and I try to do that through my writing. I also have a podcast called SaaS Scaling Secrets myself, where I interview scale up B2B SaaS CEOs about all the ways to scale their company. So folks could find that wherever podcasts are found.
Awesome. Because I think we've got more than a few people in the audience that have, that seems to be the one of the more popular ways to launch products these days. People look at it and realize, like, I don't want to do a desktop install, or I don't want to do a website necessarily that's not going to have that stickiness that SaaS tends to. So definitely you guys can check that podcast out. There will be links in the show notes for sure for all of this. And that will wrap this one up. I want to thank you so much, Dan, for hanging out with us and having this conversation and allowing it to go all over the place, as conversations sometimes do. But that's sort of the messy part, I think, of pricing and products. And it gets back to, like, this goes back to something we talk about so often, is the why. It's like, who's your customer? Who are you serving? What is the problem you're solving? And does the solution also actually solve the problem in a way that people are like, yes, take my money? So you always want to find those people that are on the desert and you're selling them a bottle of water, as opposed to the people that have just gotten out of just walked off a boat where they about drowned. And now you're like, hey, would you like a little more water on top of that? So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you hanging out with us, Dan.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
All right. And for all the rest of you, check this out in the show notes and the links there for him. And if you leave any comments for us, we will pass those on, or reach out to him directly. It'll be that much easier. Go out there and have yourselves a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. Let's see. So we do a video as well, and we have a bonus. So I love for the interviews is like, what would be one... Somebody comes to you and says, I've got a product, I need to figure out pricing. What would be like, and I don't know where to begin, what would be like a first step that you say, this is where you should begin with your pricing journey?
Well, I would say two things. I actually have a SaaS CEO pricing scorecard on my website, so that's a good sort of a self-assessment. And then there's some prescriptive tips for helping through different scenarios. Because as we've talked about, pricing can cover a lot of ground, whether that's governance, nobody owns pricing, that's a problem, or discounting is all over map, that's a problem, right? Or more of the strategic pricing considerations that we discussed on the show. I'd say areas of highest leverage, for folks just getting started, is one thing I've learned is there's a difference between having a discounting policy and enforcing a discounting policy, and you want to make sure you're doing both, because that's at the front end, right? If we think about your developer audience will understand APIs. That's the API for your pricing, right? So we could have some beautiful strategic pricing that in the boardroom looked amazing on PowerPoint, but your sales folks just do whatever they want. The market's never going to know about that beautiful pricing. So it's usually a really good first step for folks to say, do we have a price discounting policy, and are we actually enforcing and monitoring and tuning that over time? So I think that's a really good tactical first place to start, because we go do a bunch of really cool strategic work in the boardroom, and if we launch it, we're not going to see as much impact.
Oh, that's a I've got nightmare horror stories in my past of companies where the salespeople were able to pretty much just do whatever pricing wise, and they ended up they had all kinds of issues with that, as far as like some things were not even profitable. And then trying to actually, like, when they tried to standardize it, it was a nightmare because everybody was like, I've got a 10-year contract with this thing. And like, oh, that's not going to work. We're going to have to find a way to, reset that. And people aren't happy when they've already like budgeted that out. All right, well, we'll let you get back to your day. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the bonus. Actually, I guess 2 little bonus points there. And we'll get this out. This will be coming out, I think we're like at late January now, somewhere around there.
I think we're into February now.
Maybe early February. We'll do it. It'll be a 2-parter. So it'll be a Tuesday and a Thursday. And as we get closer to those links and have those available, we will send them out and allow you to share those out.
Just out of curiosity, why do you do 2-parters? I don't care. I'm as a podcaster myself, I'm wondering like how you guys landed on that.
It really came from it being this thing. We're like at almost 1,000 episodes, and even early on, it was always about a 20 to 25 minute, occasionally a 30-minute podcast, and it didn't have. There were no interviews for the longest time, and once we started having guests, the conversations were just too good. The conversations we couldn't get stuff in 20 minutes. And so. Finally, I was like, all right, instead of just having like all sorts of, going from 20 minutes to an hour and then maybe back to 20 minutes or anything like that, we said, we'll keep it closer to like a time box of some sort. And then we'll just split them into, multiple episodes. And so that's turned out to be not a bad way to do it too, because then it allows people to just sort of like, really to just digest some of the stuff, because we tend to have like this. You've got a conversation where there's a lot of good notes in there. And so I found it's pretty nice to have like, they can take, that first half of it, think about it a little bit. They come back the next episode and now get hit with, either sometimes it's a little bit of a variance in what we talk about, or it's like now we get into the more complicated applications of whatever we talked about in the first episode. So it's really has more to do with just sort of like time boxing stuff and keeping more of a consistency in length as opposed to anything else.
Oh, well, yeah, no, it's that's reasonable. I'm an outlier. I listen to like 2-3 hour podcasts, so
I do that. Like I'll do the Dan Carlin podcast every 6 years or whenever it comes out. But to me, it's like there's a certain point, but it's an audiobook now. But then there are a few like I'll listen to, and I'll be like, it's good. It's better for long trips. With ours, with the developer thing, it feels like, if you're not in the car all day or something like that, it's easier to just hit this in a snippet, like during lunch, or if you've got like a, average 30 to 45 minute commute home or something like that, then you can sort of fit it in a bite-sized chunk as opposed to having to do it over, a couple of listens.
Cool. Well, hey, I appreciate the opportunity. Anything I can do for you?
Not right now, but definitely I will reach out to you on LinkedIn if I have not already. I don't think I haven't. We'll connect, and we'll get you that stuff, and just let us know if there's any questions you have or anything like that we can help out anywhere we can go. Even if you want to chat about podcasting approaches and stuff like that, we're happy to do that as well.
Yeah. Well, you guys, 1,000 episodes, you got a lead on me for sure. I think I'm happy. I'm about to crack 75. So yeah.
It goes quick. It's amazing how suddenly I was like, wow, it's 100. Wow, it's 500. Wow, it's almost 1,000. It's just like, it does, like you get into the rhythm, and the next thing you know, you're like, wow, I have cranked out a lot of episodes.
Wow. Well, it's impressive. Well, hey, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Have a good one. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.